Hey guys, welcome back. DreamReaver23 here with another Let's Play episode of Kerbal Space Program. Now I do realize that it's been a while since I've done a Kerbal Space Program Let's Play, and the last ones that I've done weren't really Let's Plays, they were more just showing off getting to the moon or whatever that was out there. And the reason why it's been so long is because I haven't really had a good understanding of how best to go about doing a Let's Play series for Kerbal Space Program. Now, these aren't going to come along, possibly daily. I do want to try to get them up as much as possible, but these take a little bit longer to go through and plan out, edit, render, record, just because they are quite a bit more thought process put into them than doing just a Minecraft Let's Play. So they will be coming out, and I do want to start these, but I was kind of, baffled by how do I get a good Let's Play series. They got guys out there like Scott Manley and, all these different people that do these great Let's Play series, and I was, rather intimidated by doing these because Scott Manley, he's an aeronautical engineer, he's an astrophysicist. He's a guy that actually knows his stuff, and I am by no means am that well-versed in space travel, I guess you could say. So, but I found this one guy. His name is Katateochi, and he has a very little subscribers. He only has, I think, like 1,500, 1,600 subscribers. And he did this really great series called Constellation Mission. And it was, very short in that bit, but he does mainly Kerbal Space Program stuff. And so I took his, kind of style, and I said, that's really cool. Let me try doing something along those lines. And we'll test that out and see how you guys like it. So for this, I wanted to start off, and I am using the latest version of Kerbal Space Program, which I believe is 0.21.2, and wanted to kind of get started on here. And so what I developed out at first, I have Remote Tech on here, and I needed to get a Skynet, basically, a satellite relay system that would allow me to use Remote Tech and use all my drones. And so I built this spacecraft that you've been seeing for the past minute or so. We're going to go ahead and get this launched, and I needed to launch it pretty much immediately. This ship, sometimes it holds together well, and sometimes it doesn't. And so it made it to where it was kind of difficult to get those done on there. But we went through, and once you got it off the launch pad, it actually handled really well. But it was getting it, past the launch pad. If you kept it on the launch pad too long, it would just kind of shake apart with the ASAS and everything on there. So you can see here we're going through, we're launching it, we're going to do, and I'm kind of jumping between because it did take a while. I think altogether this mission of just getting this first bit up into orbit was something about 45 minutes to an hour. So I wanted to cut that down and make it quite a bit shorter. So you can see we go through and drop off our first stage with just 4 solid rocket boosters. This second stage is another solid rocket booster, but it's not as much thrust to weight ratio as it was before. With the 4 on there. So we're kind of getting this out there. And our orbit here, we're going for a geosynchronous orbit, which is, if I remember, 2,868.75 kilometers above Kerbin is where you need to get this orbit at. And it makes it to where it's you stay in a stationary position. You stay with the orbit of Kerbin, which makes it to where you can always kind of have the Kerbal mission, our main home base right there, mission control, in orbit or in contact with. And whenever you're using Remote Tech gives you these great abilities to do a lot of really cool stuff, but it also comes with a cost. You have to maintain. If you want to put up an unmanned spaceship, you can't put up an unmanned spaceship without having remote control access, direct line of sight with it in some way. So we're actually going up here and we're setting up, it was actually dubbed in my Twitch stream, DreamNet. And that would allow us to go through and have it to where my thought process was I wanted to get a geosynchronous satellite system to where I could have my main ship, which will actually eventually become a space station, which this ship right here will become a space station that will go in geosync orbit horizontally right around the equator of the planet Kerbin. And then I would have 3 other satellites that would go off into you can call it like a molecular type of orbit around Kerbin, but they would all be pretty close to geosync as well, so that there always is a contact either with the ship or with Kerbal Mission Control. So that's the goal, that's the aspirations of this project right here. And it came along pretty well. And so this is kind of like breaking it down, showing you the different parts on here for getting that out there. So right now I'm going through and getting closer out there into the orbit. You can see I went a little bit further out than I wanted to, so I'm trying to bring that back down and get it to where we are in a orbit, you know, an actual orbit around Kerbin instead of just plummeting back to our deaths. And this whole time, what I want to try to do is make it to where we don't ever lose a Kerbal. As you can see, my crew that I have on here, I have Bill, Jebediah, and is that Bob? I believe so. So since I'm rendering right now, I'm doing this post-production. All the audio on here is post-production, and so getting this out there, it takes a little bit more time, but it's really fun to do. So you can see we're getting it closer in there into an orbit, and the maneuvers on this game, like, I am so glad that they introduced that. MechJeb is a part of this mod pack that I was able to download, this bundle, which actually was from Kataya Tolchi, or I can never remember his name, but he actually had his Constellation missions. He had a mod pack, but it's limited. He doesn't have everything in the mods that are out there. So I am using that, but I don't like to use MechJeb. It's too easy, if you will. So you can see on there I actually opened up my satellites. I have 3 satellites that face back down to Kerbin, and they have a direct line of sight with our mission control there, and that's what that blue line represents. So if you've never played Kerbal Space Program before, it's a really cool program, and it's definitely well worth the purchase. It's a sandbox, so you kind of do whatever you want on here. Now, to provide some extra power, if you look at my electric charge, the little satellites that are on here, they're with the new remote tech. So they're nice little satellites that are like kind of pre-made, and since they're still attached to my main station, I wanted to get some extra power going through. And so I opened up the satellites so that they would power back up the main station. And you'll see here in a bit, I will also go through and make sure that they have full fuel. They're not using anything like that. You want to make sure that they're fully charged on there. But out at this altitude, they actually do really well to sustain fuel, and they can actually go quite a ways, and it's pretty easy to get them into orbit. Which this was my first time doing a successful launch and getting them into a geosync orbit. I worked with it on the Twitch stream, and kind of that's where I do a lot of my testing out of stuff and chat with people and everything like that. But then this was the first time that I was like, boom, good to go. And I actually will be breaking it down and actually doing all 3 at the same time. You'll see that on the screen here in just a minute. I did run into one little problem. With these little satellites, you have to activate the engines, and I didn't realize that before I launched them. So this system that you're seeing right here right now is a Fuel Balancer. It's another mod that you can get through KerbalSpaceport.com. And it is really nice because it goes through and automatically shifts all your fuel around to where that you stay balanced on a ship. In actual ships, you know, with NASA and, you know, like any of the like Russian or German, any of the space programs that are out there, a lot of times they do have some sort of system that balances fuel inside of its tanks after the initial launch. Typically, when on your initial launch, you're going to be going with a solid rocket booster. So, but you can see I split into 3 different ones, and this is all 3 satellites, which, you know, basically took down about 35 minutes of this video by bringing these all into one sequence. And so you can kind of see I'm doing the same process over and over. I'm going in and bringing them out and getting them at about anywhere between a 65 and a 75 degree angle off of my initial orbit, and getting them to where they are also in the geosync, which kind of proved difficult on the first one, and it took a little bit longer. By the third one, though, I had it down pretty well and was able to get that done. The third one, I believe, is the bottom right one. Nope, could be the bottom left one. I think it's the bottom left one, actually. So getting them set up in this pattern, and you can see the overall pattern of what it's going to look like on the bottom left one down there. So you'll have the main station, you have the one that goes directly over top, one that goes through, and the other 2 that kind of crisscross right in the middle. So it's a nice little system, and they all launched, going through, and now you can see how fast actually they will gain the speed that they need. Most of them are averaging around 900 meters per second of delta V that they needed to get into their orbits, their new orbits. But yeah, you can see the little antennas that they have on there that pop out, and the solar panels, so they'll provide themselves power. They'll have the antennas so that they always can stay in contact and kind of get that feed out there. So it's a nice little system that they have installed with this little default satellite that's kind of like all-inclusive. You don't have to worry about, you know, okay, well, I need to build this, and I need to have this part, and I have to have this much thrust to weight ratio and this much fuel. It's an all-in-one, which saves a lot of time, because you can design these little satellites yourself if you wanted to, but a lot of times you're just met with, you know, frustration and dismay So I got them in their orbit now. You can see that they are in their orbit, and you'll start to see the blue lines to where they are connecting between the ship. The bottom left right there, you can see it's still connected to the ship. And once it gets out of the range of the ship, it's going to go through and get the closest one to it. So since it sees that it's going to be able to connect to mission control, it did that one as well. And we'll cover back over it so you can kind of see what these are laid out like. So, good mission though. It's a great fun start to go through and kind of get this thing set up. And it took a bit of planning to go through and design the ship, obviously, that could maintain all this stuff, still have things to where you can connect other ships to it. And while these do get pretty close whenever they intersect, they're off by, you know, a few hundred to 1,000 meters between each of them. But yeah, nice little setup on there. And that means that with these satellites and everything like that, I believe they have full range all the way up to the moon, if I'm not mistaken. So you'll be able to go through and we'll be able to start running missions out to the moon of Kerbin, which Kerbin actually has 2 moons. The moon, MUN, and Minmus are both moons of Kerbin. So that's, we'll first try to go and get out to the moon, and then we'll go to Minmus and try to work our way out from there. Another installed mod that I have on here is the new Kethane mod, which they've done a lot of really cool updates to. One of my favorites is they actually did the grid over, instead of having it before where you would have like a little satellite map of the planet. Now they actually have a grid that overlays, you know, whatever planet or celestial object that you're working with, and you can kind of see the different hex references on there, and we'll kind of go into that a little bit more next episode. But yeah, it's just a really nice overlay for a lot of the new mods that are coming out. They're kind of really moving forward at great speeds on what they're doing on there, and it's making the game really interesting. Great thing about this game is it's a sandbox game, so you don't really have goals. They will have a career mode that they are going to be starting to implement, I believe, within the next like 2 episodes, or 2 updates. So you'll start to see those kind of come in through there. They're going to be doing a lot more to where you're actually going to have to go out and harvest resources to be able to go through and build your ships, and you'll have to maintain certain oxygen levels and everything like that. So it's going to be really cool. And on the screen right now, you can actually see that I have my docking ports that are up there, and so we're going to start docking to them. And on the next episode, we're actually going through and we're going to get the our next mission, I should say, is we're going to start to get some more power up there, because if you look at this system right here doesn't have this station right here doesn't have any way of providing its own power. So you can see that it's draining in the top right corner with nothing to go through and boost it back up. So I needed to get a good solar plant up there. So that's what we're going to be doing next episode. Make sure you guys join me, and until then, I am Dreamweaver23, reminding you to game happy, and we'll see you all later. Bye, guys.